that's the #1 mistake people make for interviews. Keep watching because in this video, we're gonna share you some tips that you can use in your upcoming interviews to come off and communicate more confidently and be less nervous so you can say, I've got the job. Hey guys, I'm Diana and I'm a senior product manager at a large tech company based in Silicon Valley, California. In this video, we're gonna cover 4 things today. First, we're gonna talk about the best way to prepare. Secondly, getting into the right mindset. Third, how to communicate. And fourth, some strategies on how you can get confident right before the interview. So we're starting off with preparation. Preparation before the interview is going to be your best friend, and please do not wing it because that's the #1 mistake people make for interviews. Either because they don't have time or they let their egos get to them and say like, I can do this. So how do we prepare? The first thing you can do is to gather the questions that you're expected to answer. You can either start off by asking the recruiter or hiring manager, check Glassdoor, or ask friends that you might know that work at the company. And the last resort might be reaching out to someone at the company on LinkedIn. Because if you don't know what questions they're gonna ask, how the heck are you gonna prepare? Second part of preparation is to practice answering the question. For behavioral questions like tell me about a time, you wanna brainstorm stories ahead of time and then organize it into a structure. Like the CAR structure that I talked about, which I'll link in the description below, and you'll find in the card above, which goes into how you should organize your answer and what are the key things that you want to hit in delivering a good answer. Third thing, you want to score yourself and track progress. So it's not just about sharing an answer and telling an answer. You want to give a good answer, and hence you have to assess for yourself from 1 to 10, how was that answer? Was that a 2 or was that an 8? And if it was a 2, you might ask, how do I use some of the strategies that Diana talks about to get it to an 8? And there you want to ask yourself, what score do you want to hit before you're confident that you can pass the interview? And a lot of times that's closer to an 8 and above. Number 4 is you want to practice live. So finding other people that you can mock interview with, using other companies that you might care less about, and set up interviews with them. Or you can even talk to yourself to a camera and record yourself and then look back at the recording to see, oh, where did I mess up? Did I sound confident? Basically gather feedback either from someone you're mock interviewing with or watching the video yourself and look for areas of improvement and then incorporate them. And the last thing you want to do in preparation is to learn about the company. And this means learn about the products. Heck, even use some of the products that the company is selling or providing and establish an opinion on it. Maybe there are some products that you hate and maybe there are some products that you love. And for the products you hate, think of how you might improve the product. You also want to read about the company's values and missions to get you excited about why you might join the company, because they might ask you a question like, why are you interested in joining said company? You might also read reviews on Glassdoor on what it's like to work there. And based on what you read in the reviews, they can serve as good questions to ask in your follow-up question at the end of the interview. So I'm thinking about creating another video to cover some commonly asked interview questions. So comment below and let me know what are some common interview questions you want me to cover, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when that video comes out. Next, we want to talk about developing the right mindset for interview. And this starts off with having constructive thoughts. A lot of the times our thoughts work against us. And that is what causes the nervous feelings. Because we're thinking thoughts like, oh, I'm gonna bomb this, or I'm so not prepared. And those feelings trigger a lot of adrenaline and that jitters that you feel. And it's not very positive and, again, not conducive to helping you succeed during the interview at all. So you have to counteract that with more constructive narratives. For example, if what is triggered in your brain is, oh, I'm gonna bomb this, you have to counteract that with another thought telling yourself, well, I've spent the last 2 months preparing, so I've done all the preparation work to make sure that I don't totally bomb. Or let's say you didn't prepare that much and you can't use that argument. You might say, well, it's not the end of the world if I don't get this job because I still have my current job, which I like. I can always re-interview in 6 months, or I actually have a couple of other companies lined up that I care more about to interview for. So these counteractive, constructive thoughts help you be less nervous and kind of almost care less. Which, have you noticed in the interviews that you care less, you end up performing flawlessly? Also, sometimes here, you might feel a bit powerless because in the interview, you're being evaluated. So you often put the interviewer on a pedestal. But instead, realize that you're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. Which means if it's not a good fit based on your interview experience, let's say the interviewer was not nice to you, they weren't very collaborative, you might realize you have power there to also say, well, no, I don't want to work at this company. So take power back into your own hand. So the second way to develop the right mindset is prepare for the worst, because sometimes they might happen, and hence you have a backup plan to know how to react if it happens. Because let's face reality, sometimes, actually a lot of times, you get interviewers who just don't care, or who are just jerks as people. And if we don't prepare for that in advance, at least prepare our mentality, we're gonna be shocked when it happens and we're gonna feel really bad. Hence, I use the if-then method. And this if-then method is me thinking through the different scenarios beforehand and how I might react. So that way, when I'm put in the situation, I already have a plan to react versus needing to think in the moment and reacting. So it allows me to be proactive versus reactive. So an example is, if the interviewer seems disinterested, then I might try to engage them again first. And if it still doesn't work, I might just assume and shrug off that they've had a busy day. Or if the interviewer is a jerk, then I'm just gonna assume it's more about how they are versus how I am, and I just won't take it too personal. And the third part of developing the right mindset is don't take it personal. Whatever happens during the interview, whatever happens after the interview, don't let it be a reflection of your self-worth. If you don't do well in the interview, that doesn't necessarily mean you wouldn't do great on the job. The interview is such a small glimpse of who you are. So don't use whatever happens from the interview as a reflection of you as a person or you as a professional. If you get rejected, realize they might reject you for reasons that are beyond your control. For example, one time when I was interviewing for Google again, well, first I got a yes and then I got a no, but the no was because they got rid of the role. And another time I initially got a yes and then got a no because they decided to go with someone that was more convenient to hire because that person already had a work visa. So you see, those are not signifiers that I'm a bad candidate. It's just signifiers of companies put themselves first. Now we're going to talk about how to communicate. So my first tip here is always be structured. If you're given a case problem or if you're given a question, try to break it down. For example, you might say something like, how I want to approach this is first I want to talk about thing 1, then thing 2, then thing 3. Or you want to make sure you communicate transitions. For example, now I'm moving on to my second point. This is to help the interviewer make it easier for them to digest the information so that they can take notes and it's easier to listen to. The next point is to pause and pace yourself. Here, most times interviewees immediately react to a question. Think about it, the first thing that pops in your head isn't always the best answer. So give yourself time and space to think thoroughly through an answer before you respond. And a lot of people don't do this because they're scared to ask for time. They think it's awkward if I take a whole minute, oh my God, a whole minute of silence. But let's pretend that you're the interviewer and I ask, do you mind if I take a minute to think through this and jot down some thoughts and present it back to you? So as an interviewer, how would you feel? You'd probably think, no big deal. And another symptom of people not pacing themselves is when they speak too quick. And that is also detrimental because as an interviewer, I'm jotting down notes and later I have to represent you in the hiring committee. But if I can't understand what you're saying because you're talking so fast at the speed of light and talking like this, they're not going to be able to get the signal that they're looking for. So pause in different sections and also pause to allow the interviewer to ask you any clarifying questions that they might have. And the last part of how to communicate is to write it down. So communication, yes, mostly is verbal during the interview, but don't be afraid to jot down notes either on a whiteboard or on paper or in a Google Doc if that helps you organize your thoughts. lastly, we're gonna talk about how to get confident. And this part's fun. So the first step that can help you build confidence during the interview is to build rapport with the interviewer. And here you can make a good first impression by starting off the conversation building rapport. So asking things like, how's your day going? How was your weekend? Did you do anything fun? Or how's your week going? Any highlights? So this invites them in to talk a little bit about themselves to then allow you to chime in and build rapport with them and connect on something. If they're the ones to first ask you how you're doing, don't just say a simple answer like, oh, I'm doing fine, but give them something that they can chew on to build rapport with you. So you might tell them something interesting about your week where you went fly fishing. They might be like, oh, that's interesting. What the heck is fly fishing? And then you guys spend a couple minutes where you're teaching them. So this helps you be more confident because when you connect with people, you're building those positive emotions. The feel-good hormones like serotonin or oxytocin starts being brought in to then help you feel more at ease during the interview. At the same time, when you're building those feelings of connection, the interviewer is probably gonna be kinder to you and wanna help you more because we wanna help people that we feel a connection with. The second thing to getting confident is to build positive feelings before the interview. So I mentioned what causes those nerves and jitters and the butterfly feeling in your stomach comes from a hormonal action. Basically, you're getting adrenaline pumped into your bloodstream. And what does adrenaline do? Adrenaline is the fight or flight hormone. And adrenaline comes as a reaction when your mind is thinking, uh-oh, I'm in danger. So these hormones are not conducive to performance because you're either thinking, okay, should I escape? And I'm sure many of you during interviews are just like, get me out of here, get me out of here. Or I guess fighting, but you're not gonna fight the interviewer. Like the aggression is not what's needed. So you need to counteract that with feel-good hormones like dopamine or serotonin. And how you build those is before the interview, doing things that you enjoy. For example, you might enjoy playing with your dog. That definitely builds a lot of serotonin or oxytocin, one of those feel-good hormones. Playing with your kids, doing things that generate laughter, watching something that's funny, or maybe you do something that you're good at, so you get into maybe a flow state. So all of these things can build that positive energy that you need beforehand to perform well on the interview. And lastly, and very importantly, I want you to remember your value. So we talked about earlier to not connect your self-worth to the results or what happens in the interview. And here, how you can combat that is to realize, well, I have a lot to offer too. So even if the company doesn't hire me, I have so many examples where I've performed well in my past companies. I have other companies reaching out to me, wanting to hire me. So keeping this in mind can also make you stand up confidently and be like, okay, if this company doesn't want me, so what? So you can do all these things we talked about, like building positive energy and getting into the right mindset. But again, if you do not prepare, it's going to be hard for those things to work if you didn't do the upfront preparation. So check out this video where I go through what's the best way to prepare for interviews, especially behavioral questions like tell me about a time X. Not only should you have stories prepared, but you should organize them in a certain way and also cover certain things to come out with a standout answer. And I will see you guys in the next video.